for tuning in, whether you're on X, whether you're on YouTube, another episode of the James Nolan podcast. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine and a good friend of the show's. He's been on multiple times, but recently he's had a big last year, especially since the last time I had him on the pod. We're going to be talking Yankees in just a bit. Giancarlo Stanton, he's that hamstring injury is really going to affect him, so I do want to ask you about that. But before we get into Yankees and before we get into the Subway Series, you went to Dubai. You wrote a book, Passion Prevails. You've been having a lot of guests on your shows recently. So first, just tell me a little bit about the Dubai trip, and then where did the thought come about the book come from? Just tell us, the viewers, about why you decided to write that book, and just give us a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for having me on, James. I really appreciate it. It's been a little while since we last spoke, and it's exciting to be on here. But yeah, I went to Dubai out in November. What a great experience that was. They're trying to grow the game of baseball, trying to expand internationally and in a different continent, a place where cricket is really the main sport. So it's really cool to just see what they're doing and just be a part of trying to grow the game internationally at that scale. When you have so many major leaguers who had a lot of success over here investing into this league and trying to grow it, it was really cool to just see the beginning stages of it. And I know they're looking to expand. They're looking to continue to play more games out there this coming year and just try to grow the schedule as time goes on and play more games. It's going to be really cool to see. I know they're looking to play in other countries and just do things, little by little grow. And that's something that's really incredible because, baseball is a global game. You have Asia and, the Japanese leagues and Korean come out of there. So there's so much that's happening around the globe with this sport, and it's been pretty cool to just play a role in trying to cover it and be a part of that. And then as far as the book goes, I published a book last year to try to help out youth players how to deal with adversity, how to navigate the challenges that come with sports. And it was inspired by just my own experiences and having interviewed so many players. I thought that, there's a way to help inspire these young kids who were dealing with challenging situations. And, in high school, I faced some challenging circumstances, just not having as much fun playing the game as I used to. And I thought that this would be a beneficial read for kids who are maybe thinking about quitting or don't know how to face these challenges when they're facing it. Sometimes you don't really know how to face something until you actually deal with it for the first time. We want to try to provide them with some information that can help them before they even go through any of it. So then they're more educated when they then do have an injury or are faced with a bad coach or things are not working out for them at the plate. So that's really the goal of what I've been doing, just to try to grow the game and then keep these kids involved and help them be inspired throughout the process.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And especially, I think the one thing that I really thought you thought was great that you just mentioned was how great just overall that baseball is and how much it's just going to expand. So I know former Yankee Nick Swisher has been a big proponent of that, Baseball United. So have you gotten to talk to him at all? Have you has he had any insight on these Yankees this year? Has he had thoughts on them? What does he think of them? And overall, Baseball United as a whole, where do you think that's going to take off to now?
Yeah, no, Swish is the man. You know that. He's one of my favorite interviews of all time that I've done. And yeah, we first met when he was in AAA with the Yankees as he was about to retire, so towards the end of his career. And I think it was like 6 years later was this past November when I talked to him again. So that was pretty sick just to see the growth and then just meet him again and have that conversation. But yeah, no, he's played a pretty big role in the league and trying to be involved as an investor and an ownership role there. And then also he was broadcasting games and involved with the media side on the analyst role. So that was really cool to just see what he was doing with that. And I know he was definitely excited about the Yankees this year. I didn't really have much conversation with him about the team on the Yankees side, but I know that obviously he was excited to just see what direction they were moving in and getting some of these new guys that they were able to get. And it's just been awesome. There's so many guys involved with the league. Albert Pujols, it was somebody who I was able to talk to, and he's the ambassador for it. And Robinson Cano and Mariano Rivera is a co-owner. He wasn't out there when they had the showcase, but Pujols was, and just so many guys who were just legends around the game. Felix Hernandez, King Felix. It's unbelievable when you see these guys all together and you're able to just talk to them and get their thoughts on everything. But that was a really cool experience. And I think, look, when you have players like that who have had so much experience, they want to give back. They want to grow the game. They know what it was like when they were coming up, to have a few people who were in their corner trying to help them. And they want to be those kinds of guys for the next generation coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially with players coming from all around the world too, it would be really cool to see like the Saudi Arabia side start to get more involved in baseball. And I think that's
Right.
going to play a huge role in it, get the fans going there. Because it is, it's a growing country. It's getting a lot of sports, not just baseball. So, and especially like you mentioned before with the Latin American influence in the MLB, the Japanese, we see Shohei Ohtani right on the Mets, Kodai Senga, like it's a global sport right now, and it's really going to take off, I think, even more than it is. And, we're doing better than the NBA, at least in baseball. But, yeah, we're not going to be talking NBA. But let's get into the Yankees, man.
Yeah.
I know you're a big Yankees fan, and I love talking Yankees with you. So, overall, Subway Series starts tomorrow. It's right there on the screen. Mets on a hot streak. Yankees, not so much, but they're still one of the best teams in baseball. And they got, I think, the best player in baseball in Aaron Judge. I think he's better than Ohtani. But yeah, just your thoughts on this Subway Series with Garrett Cole starting tomorrow, getting his first game, or I would say second game back, I should say. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this Subway Series? What do you think we should look out for?
Yeah, look, whenever you have teams, whether they're struggling or whether they're not struggling and they're doing pretty well, whenever you're facing these teams that are known to be competitors or rivalry type teams, they're always going to put up a fight. They're always going to put up a fight and try their hardest to win those games. Look at the Yankees, Red Sox, or Yankees, Mets. Any of those types of battles, no matter how badly that team is doing, there's always that edge that you're looking to beat that team. You're looking to put your best out there, and there's a little bit more to it. I feel like the fans really get involved with it as well. So I really look forward to this series, and it's a 2-game set. They're playing at Citi Field, and you have Garrett Cole and I believe Luis Heel is starting the second game.
Yeah, two of the best pitchers on the Yankees. Maybe
that's really going to be exciting. And obviously, the Mets, they've had their struggles, but they've been doing better as of late. I'm really looking forward to it. It's hard to predict baseball or what to expect because, as we've seen with the Yankees, they've been hot this year a lot, and then all of a sudden, recently they've had some struggles. They've had quite a few injuries in a matter of a week and a half. You look at guys just going down like flies. Rizzo went down, Stanton went down, Poteet, Hamilton. All these guys are going down, and then they were without Judge for a game or so with that scare, and then Soto was out for that Dodgers series. So things happen in this game that you really can't predict, and things just happen. But I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like the key will be for Cole and Heel to be dominant, and then offense get a few runs across the board. But we'll see. It's really difficult to say because the Mets are playing at home, and if they get their offense rolling and are able to hold the Yankees offense a little bit with some of the other guys that they have replacing your typical starters in the lineup, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets offense has been rolling, but they are going to be running into two of the game's best pitchers, in my opinion. Hill has been phenomenal. So before we do get into Garrett Cole and him coming back for his second start, especially, I would say a big one, because I was listening to David Wright talk about it. It's not just, I guess, any game, even though all the players say it. There is a little bit of amped upness, if that makes sense. It's like feels like a playoff game in the regular season. It's bragging rights, and the fans, they're going, and that atmosphere really amps it up. So with Cole being on the bump tomorrow, he's had the experience in the Subway Series, but Louis Gill, he has not. So what do you think we should expect from Hill in the second game of this series?
Well, he had a very rough last outing. He only lasted, I believe, 1 1/3. It was a really tough outing. Gave up, I believe it was close to like 6 or 7 runs. And that's very unlike him. His ERA shot up, but it is what it is. He's the guy who is looked at as the potential Cy Young Award winner for this year, maybe starting the All-Star game. Look, you're going to have bad starts. I know there's some formula that players like to look at. You're going to have this many good starts, this many bad starts, and then you're going to have some that are in the middle. It just happens, right? But I really look forward to this because it's kind of like one of those stages where you're able to play in sometimes a playoff type atmosphere when you're playing the Subway Series without it actually being the playoffs. Kind of like the Dodger series in my mind, how that series was pretty electric with games being on Fox, ESPN, national games. This coverage should be pretty good as well, and a lot of fans should be watching. So I think he'll get a sense of what it's like to just play New York at that stage against your rival in the city. But I wouldn't look too deeply into it, because at the same time you're playing the same game. You're playing this. You're facing competition that is solid, but you're not trying to do too much. And that's the thing. You always want to look at each game as being important. No game is special, and that's how you have to look at a game in the early in the season or a game in the postseason. You just got to go out there and do what you know you could do. And as long as he could regulate those emotions and be himself on the mound, I see good things coming from him.
Yeah, yeah. And then not only Hill, but another pitcher thrown. We mentioned it before, Garrett Cole, second game back on the season after a pretty long absence. So what are you going to look to see out of Garrett Cole against the Mets tomorrow night?
Well, I'm wondering how far he gets in the game. Definitely the distance, the length you're going to get out of him, because he only went, I believe, less than 5 innings the last game. That was his first game. So you want to get maybe 6 innings out of him. And he did throw, I believe, 3 rehab starts before he came back. So he should be almost built up to the point where he can go out there and get 6 innings across. But that's something that you always have to keep an eye on. So I'm hoping that he's able to keep the pitch count low, get through the order, and then hand it to the bullpen. Because once you use too many bullpen pieces, it could get dangerous, right? The Yankees have had some injuries in the pen. Their bullpen hasn't been as strong as it was in the past with these injuries, and then some guys who have been a little bit shaky as of late. So you definitely want to try to get as much as you can out of the starter, and then see what happens with who you're going to throw it to in the 7th, 8th, 9th, that period of time.
Yeah, the Yankees bullpen was dominant to start the year, but now, like you said, with those injuries, they haven't been the same. So I'm in agreement with you. I'm looking for Cole to go longer than what he did in game 1, even though I would say he kind of pitched well in his first start back. I mean, I get it. They don't want to overstretch him a little bit, and his pitch count was kind of up for 4 innings. But, Cole, he's one of the best, if not the best pitcher in MLB. And I'm scared as a Mets fan going up against him, because I feel like he's a big game pitcher. He's proved he's a big game pitcher. So with that being said, how important do you think Garrett Cole coming back to the Yankees, especially at this time period when they're in a little bit of a funk right now, how important do you think he'll be?
Yeah, it's crucial. It's funny because when we first were talking about when is he coming back, and then, okay, the rotation's all healthy, what's going to happen? Who are we going to take out of the rotation? And when is Garrett going to come back? Should he wait to come back a little bit longer so then he can come in the rotation when maybe something happens to some guy or someone doesn't perform as well? Well, man, now we really need him. That's how things happen in this game. And when we were first talking about that, everyone was healthy, but now we have so many injuries that it's so important that he's now back. And I'm looking for him to just provide a stable slot in the rotation like we've always expected him to be. Whenever Garrett was out there last year, you expected him to shove, and you expected him to get the job done every 5th day. And that's something we'd love to have again. And guys like Stroman have been consistent. Nestor and other guys have been solid. But when you have Clark Schmidt going down, Poteet, who filled in for Clark Schmidt, going down, and then next thing you know, you need those innings, right? And then Rodon is another guy who has had some great starts and then some not so great starts. But you want some guy who's able to go out there consistently, get the job done. And I feel like Garrett is obviously that guy. And then Stroman, I'm very impressed with as well. It's been fun to watch him.
Yeah, Stroman, I mean, you mentioned him just now. So let's talk about him for a little bit, because he's kind of been he's always been a good first half pitcher, but this year in New York, in the Bronx, in the big city, he's really lived up to his word, because he's been a big proponent on obviously hyping himself up, and he's backed himself up this season. So how important do you think Stroman has been this season? And obviously they're probably going to get to the playoffs, whether it's the AL East or the wild card. Yankees will probably get there. But Stroman, how excited are you now that he's on this team and doing this well?
He's been great for a few reasons. First off, obviously creating that stability in the rotation. He's been consistent and throwing solid innings. That's what you need out of a veteran starter. And then just his energy, his vibe. I think it's something different, what we really haven't seen in quite a few years with him and Verdugo and Soto. But Stroman, man, he's the first one out of the dugout to greet his starting pitcher who's coming out of the game, just to give him a handshake, give him a hug, and just bring him into the dugout. And that's what you need. You need guys like that around you who are able to just be themselves and then help bring the team up, bring them together, and just remember that this is something that you want to do in the dugout to just keep everybody on the same page and uplift everybody. So I think he's been a great teammate, it seems like, and it's been fun to watch him pitch. You know, he does his own thing. He's unique, and that's what you want. You want guys to be their genuine selves when they come over here, and we got that out of him.
Yeah, and I think he's been a huge piece in that rotation too. And like you just said earlier before when we were talking about Cole, now with Cole back, it just lengthens that rotation. It puts Stroman not as that number 2 or number 1 that he kind of was all year. I mean, Hill has been phenomenal, but Stroman has been really consistent all year long. So now Stroman is now the number 3 or even number 4, you could say, depending on where you put Rodon in your opinion. But I think it's really going to help Stroman more now that Cole is back and take a little bit of a load off everybody else in that rotation, because now they know they have a guy who's done it before, reigning Cy Young. So they have someone to look up to and get advice from and feed off of. So I think that's going to be huge.
Definitely. They don't just have one guy who can get the job done. They have several who are able to go out there and throw quality innings. And it's all about consistency. All these guys in the rotation have dominated in games this year.
Yeah.
But you just ask for it to be more and more consistent each time. That's really the name of the game. The best players are consistent at execution and throwing their pitches in the zone and getting swings and misses and just going ahead and throwing quality innings. So that's what we really want to see even more of, and that's what everyone's always striving for.
Yeah, and one guy who's been a lot more consistent than he was last year, who I want to get into on the offensive end, Anthony Volpe. I mean, he's living up to the hype that he had last year. Obviously, he performed well on the defensive side, capturing that Gold Glove award, hitting over 20 home runs. But this season, a little bit less home runs, but the batting average has seen an increase. The on-base percentage has seen an increase. And then obviously his speed on the base paths always kills opposing teams. So what do you think Anthony Volpe is doing differently this year than last that he's seen so much more success from?
Yeah, well, first in the field, he's always been great defender. So I don't think there was much to improve there. But on the offensive side, I think he's really just trying to hit the ball the other way more, be more consistent, make more solid contact. And he's been able to do it. I love when you try to make adjustments, you realize what was working, what wasn't working, and you make an adjustment in the offseason, and you come back and it works. That's something you love to see. So he's been definitely, obviously, with the higher average and getting on base more. But when you look at the actual mechanics of the swing, he's leveling out a little bit more. The bat path is more through the zone. He's not trying to pull the ball as much and lift it. It seems like the home runs come, but he's able to really go with the pitch the other way. And that's what you need. Out of this offense, the way it's structured, if you have a guy like that at the top of the lineup getting on base, you have Juan Soto to follow, Aaron Judge to follow. Those guys are the ones who are going to really drive the ball even more in the air. But you have a guy like Volpe who could at least get on base with a single or, just tap one to the opposite field, kind of like Jeter in a way where he had that inside out swing. It helps out so much. So just understanding the lineup, how it's constructed, and then seeing how he's been able to make adjustments to then fit that lineup even better. That's why I think the Yankees have been pretty solid on the offensive side, at least with the first half of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge, he has insane numbers, and we're going to get into him in a little bit. His last 50 games, he has 55 RBIs, and I think, like you alluded to, a big part of that is because Volpe is doing such a great job hitting in front of those guys. I feel like he's kind of realized, okay, I got 2 of the best hitters in baseball right behind me. All I got to do is get on base, and they can do the rest. Like you said, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, they're going to clean up in that lineup. So I think it's been great for Volpe to kind of change his ways. Like you said, those adjustments that he made over the offseason, they're really paying off, not just for him, but for the team overall. I think that's he's been a big big reason, and I think an underrated piece on this team. I mean, obviously Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, and now Garrett Cole coming back, and even Louis Hill is the story, but Anthony Volpe at the top of that lineup doing what he was kind of drafted to do, I think is awesome. And especially him being a Yankee fan growing up, it just makes it even better.
Yeah. No, it's exciting to see. And obviously everyone's pulling for the guy. And Anthony's a Jersey guy. He's been around here for a while and everyone wants to support him. And just seeing how he's been able to interact with the team and bring them up, it's awesome to see. Because there's a lot of hype. Look, there's a lot of pressure, not only in New York with the Yankees, but if you're somebody with the kind of prospects hype, you could easily fall into that trap. You look at any team, any of your top prospects, their heads are being blown up. Everyone's sending them stuff. They're being hyped up all the time. But you need to know how to regulate that and know how to handle your emotions and handle those distractions. And that's the key, I think, to playing in New York. If you can't handle that, it's going to be difficult. But if you can, like he's been able to, it obviously it could definitely pay off.
Yeah. And now I think he's really been seeing great success because, like you said, he's comfortable now, and he's found himself in this lineup, especially in a great lineup. So let's get into those other guys. And before I do get into Soto, Aaron Judge, man, do you think this guy's the AL MVP favorite right now?
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, you look at the first month of the season, he was really struggling, and then he just turned on the Jets. Mm-hmm. So we all thought he was hurt at first because he had that little lingering thing day to day in spring training, and then he went into the season playing every day. But he's been able to really turn it on and just obviously be the guy who everyone knows he is. But you never know. I really hope so. That'd be great for him. You never know if any other guys come out of nowhere and just start raking or pitching really well. With the All-Star break coming up, you never know what happens, but you just want him to stay healthy. I think that's the main thing. If he's healthy, if he's out there on the field, he's going to find ways to increase his numbers and continue to be a force to help the team win games.
Yeah, and then I do think he, right now, in my opinion, he's the AL MVP favorite. I think he's recaptured the best player in the league honor, in my opinion, over Ohtani again, mainly because of his stretch over the last 50 games. I think it was his first 28 games. I think he has a total of around 28 home runs. So we only had 5 home runs in his first 28 games, and now his last 50 games, he's hit 23 and then over an RBI a game with 55 RBIs. And then you see the OPS. I mean, that's insane. Do you think Judge can keep this up? Because this is a 50-game stretch, and a 366 batting average over that long is with the power numbers is insane. Do you think he can really keep this up all year long?
Well, you hope so. But baseball, obviously things happen, slumps happen, and pitchers start to find out trends and pitch you a different way. But it's tough to pitch a guy differently and for the hitter not to make the adjustment. A guy who's as smart as Judge is, it's tough to try to pitch him and try to make an adjustment on him. He's going to quickly find a way to counter that and readjust. So it's funny how it works, but obviously if he's able to just continue to go out there each day with the same mentality, the same mindset, and do what he does every day in the same routine, I think it helps his case to be as consistent as possible and continue this stretch. But you never know with how things work in this game. One small tweak in your swing could all of a sudden throw you off, and then you're slumping for a week or so. So it's tough to say, but you want to ride this out as long as you can.
Yeah, I think these are just insane numbers. I feel like not every other game, really every game I see Judge play, it's just he's doing something that I've never seen before. Even on the defensive side, he's great. And just the durability he's had. I mean, I think that's an underrated part of his game. I think the injuries that he's had during his career have kind of been freak accidents, even like last year, slamming his toe into the Dodgers wall in the outfield. Just weird, man. Just weird. But Judge, I think he is, in my opinion, the AL MVP front runner right now. And it's just insane because their lineup is so deep. We were just talking about Volpe. But we can't leave out Juan Soto. I mean, the 305 batting average over a 990 OPS. He's everything that the Yankees has asked for and more. So what do you think Soto is doing so great this season? Because I feel like it's his best season yet. And do you think the Yankees have to bring him back? And do you think they will bring him back?
Yeah, you love Soto because of the energy, the consistency, and what he's been able to do as someone who can bring a dynamic edge to the Yankees lineup. Just separating Judge and Volpe at the top and providing some balance, that lefty contact and power bat. Go in the opposite field like he's a righty hitter, hitting bombs. That's exciting to see. And obviously, when you bring the energy, kind of like Stroman on the pitching side, it's going to help out so much. He's an energy player. And when you have energy players, they help feed into the rest of the guys on the team. And he's into every single pitch. He's locked in every single pitch of every at-bat. You want that in the guy. And that really does feed off on the rest of the players in the lineup. So he's crucial, and I think that's why they should definitely try to everything they can to bring him back. He's going to be an expensive guy. He's going to be an expensive player to bring back. But you look at what he's done in New York so far, the Dominican community rallying around him. I just think he's a perfect player to play the rest of his career in pinstripes. I don't know if they could afford to lose him, but when you look at this team and what he's done a whole lot for them so far. But I think this is going to be something that'll drag into the offseason and especially be dependent on how this team ends up. Are they a playoff team? Do they advance far in the playoffs? Do they win the World Series? I do think a lot of that is going to be in play here when it comes to where Soto goes or if he stays here.
Yeah. I think right now, as it looks, I would say the Yankees are definitely the front runner to re-sign him or sign him in the offseason. But I mean, there's other guys out there, and one of those guys is apparently Steve Cohen, I guess, getting ready to throw big money at him, but I don't really buy the hype. I mean, we've seen him kind of be hesitant to throw big money since Verlander and Scherzer failed. So I think he's going to take a more conservative route and hold off on spending big money on big name free agents. I feel like the Mets mantra should be build through the farm system and hold on to guys like Lindor, Diaz, and Senga, and even Francisco Alvarez. But the Mets are a whole nother topic. But let's get into one last Yankees guy in that lineup. They have a few holes now with Anthony Rizzo, like we mentioned before, and Giancarlo Stanton going down with the injury. So how do you think the Yankees can replace those guys? And Stanton overall has been very well this year. He's actually been producing more than he ever has with the Yankees. So where do you think the Yankees go now?
Right. Well, we got your guy, JD Davis. He's a replacement for Stanton. But yeah, I would give a shot to the younger guys. Honestly, we have so many good players in AAA and AA. I like giving those guys opportunities, see what they're able to do. Ben Rice called up to play first base for Rizzo.
Yeah, he's
been
pretty
doing
good.
a nice job. I really like it, and give them the opportunity. Right? They're in first place right now. They're rolling. Obviously you have some struggles recently with the guys going down, but give them the opportunity. See what they can do. It'll help evaluate them. It'll help them gain confidence to play at this level. And of course, if there's a guy you want to sprinkle in who has more experience like Davis, so be it. But, it is what it is. Stanton, it seems like with him, he comes back from, he starts the season, he does well, and then he gets hurt. And right when he's getting real hot, he gets hurt. I hate that so much because you wonder how much longer that streak could have rolled on or how much hotter he could have gotten if he stayed healthy. But it's unfortunate that stuff happens. It's part of his game. He's hurt all the time. But you have to know how to replace those guys. I do like that the DH spot opens up now. You could rotate guys in a little bit more. But it looks like Judge might occupy that spot for maybe the majority of those games because then Grisham can play center field. So I would like to see him out there more. Great defensive outfielder. Not known to be the greatest hitter, but he's actually had some clutch hits for the Yankees this year. It's been interesting to watch him play.
And for one thing about Trent Grisham, is going up against the Mets these next two games, he kills the Mets. That's one thing I do remember about Trent Grisham. Whenever he came to Citi Field, he always killed the Mets. So I agree with you. I think Trent Grisham could actually be a sustainable piece for the Yankees while Stanton is out. I guess it's only 4 weeks with the hamstring injury is what he said at most. So I think he should be back at least for a late season playoff push. And just with what he's done so far this year, do you think when Stanton does come back, how important do you think he is in that lineup?
Well, I wonder. I really wonder because you never know. You have guys who replace him and
Mm-hmm.
might even have better numbers offensively. You don't really know
Yeah.
how to evaluate that yet, but I do know that he's been a guy who's dominated the playoffs. He's been a guy who has showed up in the playoffs. So I am looking forward to seeing the Yankees continue to roll and then see what Stanton could do in the playoffs when he comes back. It's always been fun to watch him.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, though, he might be replaceable. So we do have to see, and like, because the 18 home runs, the 45 RBIs, they're great. But at the end of the day, like, he's not Aaron Judge, he's not Juan Soto, and he's not Anthony Volpe. And he does get hurt a lot. So it is kind of a flaw of his. Is he going to be healthy every day? And now when he does come back, is that injury going to affect him for the rest of the year? I mean, we saw him last year. He was terrible. But now this year, he's obviously been healthy. Now we never know what's going to happen when he does come back. But there is other guys such as Jason Dominguez, who's hurt right now, but he will be healthy in a few weeks again. Do you think if by the time he's healthy and Stanton's still not healthy, you think Jason Dominguez could finally get that shot as a full-time outfielder for the Yankees?
I think Stan's going to come back before Dominguez. The way it's looking
Yeah.
with the oblique injury, those things take a while, and you think of rehab time and all that. It'll probably be a couple months before Dominguez can even play games at a high level. So I wouldn't be. It's actually hard to say because with the strains and hamstrings with Stan, that might take a while as well. But I'm really wondering how long it'll take both of these guys to get back. But I really would like to see Dominguez get a shot again. He will absolutely get a shot. He's a very highly touted prospect. But that's what you think of when you think later in the year when all these guys are probably going to be back. Who's going to get the playing time? Who's going to get in there? So you really wonder how that's going to play out. But that's not a decision for us to make, luckily.
Yeah. I would not want to be in Brian Cashman's shoes. I mean, he's got
No,
the
you don't.
09 World Series, multiple playoff appearances since he's taken over as GM. And I feel like every year there's always someone saying that he should get fired in the media. But he's done a great job getting Juan Soto here. And I mean, they're first in the AL East right now, even with the Baltimore Orioles are red hot. But speaking of the Baltimore Orioles, I know the Yankees have been great and they got great guys, and they literally have an all-star team, it feels like. But the Orioles are they're right there. They're right there with them. How tight do you think that race is going to be going into the end of the season?
I think it'll be pretty tight. I really do. I think it'll be within a few games, maybe even less. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. It's always fun when there's a tight race. If a team's pulling away the whole year, it's not as fun to keep up with because hey, that team's got it. But when you have two teams really going at it, and even the Red Sox who are in the race potentially for a wild card spot, it's more interesting to see. And that's always a theme with the AL East. There's always another team breathing down your neck for that next spot. So that'll be fun to watch. And they have an incredible team over there. A lot of good guys, a lot of young players who have been able to gel so well together because they've known each other since the minor leagues. So that's going to be fun to see. That might be another playoff matchup down the line. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And we got the NR Hour Sports Show saying what's up.
There we go. How we doing?
Yeah, there we go. But I feel like the AL East is definitely one of the best, if not the best divisions in MLB right now. Especially when you got two powerhouses with the Yankees and the Orioles, and even the Red Sox picking it up this year. They've been struggling these past few seasons, but I mean, they got a great manager in Alex Cora. So, well, he's not even the manager anymore. He's up there even higher now. So, you got great leadership overall just in that Boston Red Sox organization. So I'm not surprised to see them finally start to turn things around. But that AL East, man, it's phenomenal. So the Yankees definitely do have a battle, even though they have, I think, one of the best rosters in baseball. But thank you, Billy, for coming on, and I really do appreciate it. But before I let you go, one more question. Subway Series overall. You think the Yankees sweep? You think the Mets sweep? Or you think we're going to see a split?
Oh man, this is why I don't gamble on baseball or any sports, because it's such a hard sport to predict. Even football, man. It's so hard to say. I'm gonna say the Yankees sweep because of the two pitchers they have going for them. If they both show up and do what they can do, it's going to be a tough offensive series for the Mets. But like I said, you never know. Look at Heel last outing. You gave 7 runs in less than 2 innings. So the Mets pounce on them early. That could happen as well. They could pull ahead. But I'm going to go with the Yankees.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say a split. I think Cole takes us game 1 to the I would say 6 or 7. Actually, I'll say 6. I don't think they push him to the 7th, even if his pitch count is like below 80 or something. I think they pull him out after 6, no matter what. And I think he just dominates us. And, sometimes that dominance rubs off to the other guys. So I think their bullpen is going to shut things down. And I think Hill is going to have a good start too, but I think the Mets will get to the bullpen in game 2. I mean, we got JD Martinez now finally heating up. Lindor, he's getting going. So, hopefully we can get the job done there. But thank you, man, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And guys, if you want to check out more of Billy's content, just check out the description. I got the link to his YouTube, X, and Instagram there. Make sure you check out all his stuff. And Billy, anything you want to say before you head out?
No, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. And we'll see how this Subway Series matches up. It'll be an exciting one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, man, for coming on. And again, make sure you guys go check out Billy's content. He's got really good stuff. So thank you again.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. See you, man.
All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Before I go on the break, I just want to let you guys know we're going to take a break and then hop on with some Mets talk. But thank you again to Billy. Make sure you go check him out. He's got a lot of good baseball content. He was with Baseball United over this past summer. He just had a great guest on his podcast, former Washington Nationals manager, also now with Baseball United. So make sure you go check out Billy. He's definitely got some good stuff in that Passion Prevails book. I just got one, and I'm in the middle of reading it right now, and it is a really good book, especially for younger athletes looking to grow in the game. So make sure you go check that out. Thank you again for Billy coming on. Go check him out, and then we'll be right back for some New York Mets talk because we're hot. All right, thank you guys for sticking with us. I really appreciate it, whether you're watching on X, whether you're watching on YouTube. I really appreciate you guys. Couldn't do it without you guys. But yeah, let's get back into the show, man. The New York Mets. We talked about the Subway Series. Thank you again for Billy, talking some Yankees. Always love getting Yankees insight for him. Make sure, again, like I said, check out the description on the YouTube channel. I got all Billy's links in there if you want to check more of him out. But yo, what's up, Yuki? How we doing? Yuki, what are our thoughts, man? What are we thinking for this Subway Series? We're running into two of the best pitchers in the game, in my opinion, with Cole and Hill. One of the best young pitchers and one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitchers tomorrow, Garrett Cole. So we got some good pitchers. Our lineup has been on fire. JD Martinez, Francisco Lindor, and we're going to get all into it. But can these guys, and I want to say for the Yankees, these games are important, and for the Mets, it's important because the Yankees, the Orioles are right on their rear end right now in the AL East, and the Mets were only a game back in the for the third wild card spot. So, as much as people want to say the Subway Series isn't important, it doesn't really matter for both teams. This is a very important spot for both teams. They both could use 2 wins, 1 win. Like, none of them can get swept. They cannot afford to get swept. So this is an important Subway Series. It's amped up just because it's the Subway Series. It's going to be a playoff atmosphere with the crowd there. We all know that. So I think it's a very important game. So yeah, let's see. And Peterson and Manero, yes, that's true. That's true. But there's one guy in their lineup who hits very well against lefties, and that's Aaron Judge. So we got to remember that. And Anthony Volpe also hits from the right-handed side, and he does have success against left-handers too. But Juan Soto, he's a guy who does have a tough time against lefties. And David Peterson, I do remember, I believe, against when he was with the Padres, Peterson did have some success against Soto. So I'm hoping maybe we can get by a little bit. Actually, let's look that up. Let's look up David Peterson's number against Juan Soto, because that is going to be an important matchup tomorrow. David Peterson, let's see, versus Juan Soto. David Peterson allowed 1 hit and 4 walks and 5 strikeouts against Soto. So Soto, he's got 1 hit off David Peterson, not a home run too. He struck out 5 times and he's walked 4 times. So Soto hasn't had too much success. I mean, the walks are great. You get on base. But if Peterson can limit the control against the left-handed hitters in that lineup, like Yuki said, I think we might be able to get the job done. And we got to get Garrett Cole out of the game early. So I think I'm looking at guys in the Subway Series like Brandon Nimmo. I'm looking at guys like Francisco Lindor. I'm looking at guys not necessarily like Pete Alonso. I'm looking at guys like JD Martinez, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo. I'm looking for those guys to not just hit, not just get on base, not just drive in runs, but work the count against Garrett Cole. Because Nimmo and JD Martinez, they do very well at lengthening the at-bats. They do very well doing that. So I want to see Cole get out of the game early, because we all know Cole can dominate. Cole can dominate, especially in big game scenarios. And the Yankees, this is a big game for them. They need a stopper right now. They're 3-7 over their last 10 games. They're not having success right now. They need a stopper, and Garrett Cole has been their stopper since they've signed him to that massive contract. And he is the reigning Cy Young for a reason, because he's one of the best pitchers, if not the best in baseball. So get him out of the game early. So that's why I'm looking at guys like Nimmo and especially JD Martinez to work the count. And then I'm also looking at guys like Lindor and Alonso to drive in the runs. Lindor, since he's been at the top of the order, he's been fantastic. And the bottom of the order has been actually pretty good too, since Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos, they're finding it. We got 2 young guys that are finding it right now. Francisco Alvarez, he hit 25 home runs last year. This year, the home runs, I think he only has 3 this year right now, but Francisco Alvarez has been great. And Mark Vientos has been great. We're going to get into those guys. We're going to get into them a little bit more later on. But I'm looking at really this lengthening, this deep lineup that the Mets have to drive in runs in important scenarios. Because I guarantee you, there's going to be spots where Alvarez and Vientos come up early in the game against Garrett Cole, and there's going to be runners in scoring position. So these young guys, I think, are going to play a big role in this series as well. And so is Nimmo for working the count, getting on base. Same thing for JD Martinez, working the count, get on base. Alonso and Lindor, all we need is one big swing out of them to change the game, to change the complexion of the game. They got the pop to do so. Same thing with Francisco Alvarez too, and even Vientos. So I'm looking at those four guys with runners in scoring position, and I'm looking for Nimmo and Martinez to get in scoring position. So yeah, that's my Subway Series preview. I need David Peterson to do well. I need Sean Manaea to finally get things going because, listen, Manaea was lights out, actually, in the second half of 2023. So when we signed him, a lot of Mets fans were excited, and he actually had a pretty decent start to the season. But he's in a bit of a funk right now. He is. And I'd love for him to get going. I think it's the second half right about now because you know what? It's June. Only a few months left in this season, so Manaea's got to get going. It's the second half. He's got to get going now. Speaking of guys that are getting going, Lindor is one of them. He's been a big proponent of the Mets' recent hot streak. They're 8-2 over their last 10 games, 14-6 in their last 20. The Mets, they're on fire. They are on fire. So let's talk about them. 8-2, one game back of that third NL wildcard spot. You see it right there. And I put these three guys on the screen because these three guys, in my opinion, Francisco Lindor, Francisco Alvarez, and JD Martinez have been the MVPs of this run. 14-6 over our last 20 games. I think they've flipped the script on the entire season. Everybody has always said, wah, wah, wah. Francisco Lindor only does good when the Mets are bad. Dude, Lindor is raking. JD Martinez is raking. Francisco Alvarez has been raking. Even Vientos, I can't leave him out too. Pete Alonso too. He's low-key kind of getting going a little bit. But I think Lindor, most impressively, has done the best job. Like, he's changed it. Did he start off the season terrible? Yeah. I will not lie there. Lindor sucked to start the season. But since the Mets have turned things around, it's since Lindor turned things around. And we are one game back of the wild card. So Lindor, you got to give him credit. He is doing what a $300 million player should do. Is he putting the team on his back? You could make a case for it some games. You really could. There are some games when Lindor won us the game entirely by himself. He has. And then there's games where you can't win it unless you had Lindor do something that he did. So I think Lindor is finally, was his best season overall in 2022 with the Mets? Yes. Was last year a great season, 30-30? Yes. But I think the best baseball he's playing with the Mets is since he's moved to the top of the order at that leadoff spot. Lindor has been fantastic. And you got to give him credit. Francisco Lindor over his last 25 games, 307 batting average, 900 OPS, 6 home runs. He's raking. He's raking. And he plays great defense. So he's in my opinion, the reason the Mets have started to heat up, people want to say JD Martinez because of his leadership. And yes, JD Martinez has played a big role. They want to say Francisco Alvarez because when he's in the lineup, we just win. That's just a fact. When he's in the lineup, we win. They want to say the grimace. No, I think it's the leader of the Mets, Francisco Lindor. And you got to give credit to Pete Alonso too. His co-star, or supposed to be co-star. I think his co-star this season has been JD Martinez. But Pete Alonso is starting to get going. He's brought in that batting average up. A 241 batting average. That OPS is still a little bit too low for me, 792. I think Pete Alonso should have a 850, maybe even 900 OPS. That's how good he can be. The 42 RBIs, in my opinion, that's a little bit too low. Even the 16 home runs, kind of low. But he's been picking things up. The batting average has come up. I want to see more, especially with runners in scoring position, with runners on in general. Pete Alonso has sucked this year. But if he doesn't want to get traded at the deadline, because let's be real, if these numbers, if this is it, if he's just a B minus, because these are B minus numbers out of Pete Alonso, a 241 batting average and a 792 OPS out of someone who wants to be the face of the franchise, who wants to be a career Met, these are B- numbers. He can hit home runs here and there. Great. Francisco Alvarez can hit home runs and have a 280 batting average right now. Francisco Lindor, he's been 306 batting average, 6 home runs in his last 25 games. JD Martinez, he can hit home runs. He can be our cleanup hitter. Like, we got guys. Brandon Nimmo even has some pop since he's been getting going now too. Like, I don't think the Mets, I talked about it on the last podcast, I don't think the Mets necessarily need Pete Alonso, even if they want to go for the playoffs this year. I really don't. So Pete Alonso needs to change that by being more consistent. We can't have a good 2-3 game stretch and then a terrible 4. We need a good 3 weeks, and then you could take 3 games off, and then another good 2 weeks, and then take 3 games off, and another good 3-4 weeks. That's who Pete Alonso was in 2022. That's who he was in 2019. Every Met fan knows, and that's why every Met fan is so frustrated with Pete Alonso this season. It's not because we think he sucks. It's because we know he's better than what he's done this year. We all know it. And if he got going, if he played like he did in 2022, then the Mets would not be a game back of the 3rd NL wildcard spot. They wouldn't. They'd be in that mix already. They'd be fighting for the NL East maybe. Because Pete Alonso, when he is playing at his best, he is one of the best hitters in baseball. He's one of, I would say, a top 15. But he has not been a top 15 hitter since 2022. Now, Francisco Lindor, he's getting going. And I think he can continue to get going because we all know Lindor in the second half, when the good weather hits, when the summer hits, he rakes. And he's been raking. And we got other guys. We got JD Martinez. We got Mark Vientos. We got Francisco Alvarez. So do we really need Pete? I don't know. We'll find out. We will. But in my opinion, and this might piss off some Mets fans, but I don't necessarily think we need Pete Alonso to go to the postseason. In my opinion, the guy that I'd rather keep is JD Martinez. Because I don't think Pete Alonso would re-sign. Not even him. I just don't think the Mets front office will re-sign Pete Alonso at the end of the offseason if they end up keeping him and he keeps up these numbers. So, yeah, before we get back into the positive Mets part of the lineup, and Alonso, he still has a lot of time to change the script. He's been doing a lot better as of late, but he needs to do even better. He needs to do even better because we know he can be even better. When he brings that batting average above 250 and he starts to hit more home runs, then let's talk. But let's talk about one more negative part of this Mets lineup. One guy who I think needs to be traded. In one of my most recent articles on FanSided, I included him in a mock trade package. I think we should send him off to the Seattle Mariners. I don't think we're going to get much from McNeil. I think we have to accept that. But there's a guy in the Seattle Mariners organization. He's 18 years old. And I think we should trade for him. Listen, like I said, I don't think we're going to get much for Jeff McNeil. I mean, he's been terrible. He has a 212 batting average and a 275 on base percentage, or 278 on base percentage. He has been terrible. Terrible. He needs to go. And when he's out of the lineup, we actually win a lot more than we lose. And when he's in the lineup, we lose a lot more than we win. So, and there's other guys in AAA, in AA, who I think could actually provide more. Jose Iglesias has actually been providing more. But I think it's time to give one of the young guys a shot. Luis Angel Acuna has been going off. He's been going off. Luis Angel Acuna, in his last 30 games, in his last 30 games, 306 batting average, 789 OPS. And then you got to think of his tools. He's an elite defender up the middle. And he's got speed on the base paths, something that the Mets don't really have much outside of like Harrison Bader, Brandon Nimmo, and Francisco Lindor. They need more speed. And Nimmo doesn't really like to steal bases. So they do need more speed. And I think Acuna could offer that. And I think he's got a lot of potential. And the 306 batting average and 789 OPS. A 789 OPS for a guy his size, that's impressive. That's impressive. So, and then you also got one of Yuki's favorite guys. He mentioned it to me last week on the pod. Shout out Yuki for this. Luke Ritter, man, 27 years old, so he's a little bit older, but I think he's ready. He is ready for the show. This season, 2020 batting average, 893 OPS, 16 home runs, 51 RBIs. The guy is raking. He deserves to be at the big league level. It is time for Luke Ritter to take Jeff McNeil's spot. And he can play a lot of positions. He can play a lot of positions. He can play third, he can play first, he can play second. You can put him really wherever you want. So I think the Mets got to give Ritter a shot. And if it's not Ritter, I think it's got to be Acuna. It's got to be Acuna or it's got to be Ritter. And the guy we got to trade him for, I think you give him to the Seattle Mariners. And there's a right-handed pitcher, Jeter Martinez. Jeter Martinez, he hasn't been a pro for quite a while. He's only been a pro for a year and a half in low ball. But he's got 1.95 ERA across 1.5 minor league seasons. So we wouldn't be getting much, but we'd be getting an intriguing prospect. So I think just get rid of McNeil, not necessarily to get a ton of value back, but get rid of McNeil because he sucks. And there's guys like Luke Ritter and Louis Angel Acuna who could do a lot better. I think. I'm not going to say it's going to happen if they do it, but I think they got a bigger upside than what McNeil has done over the past 2 years. Because since he's won the batting title, he's sucked. There's no other better way to put it. No other better way to put it. Let's hit the comments up. The Yankees are red hot. I am scared for the Yankees as well. They've been one of the best teams in baseball all year. Even though they're 3-7 in the last 10, they are still one of the best teams in baseball all year. But Alvy is hot. And let's get into it. Because Francisco Alvarez has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. He's got energy. One, we saw that last year. But in 28 games this season, he's got a 286 batting average, 805 OPS. He's only got a few home runs, but only 28 games played. So it's not like a panic. He's been more consistent this year. And I think it's also because you got a deep lineup. You know, last season, we were terrible. I mean, Alonso was hurt for a few times in the season. Lindor was playing through an injury, and he was still actually performing pretty well in the second half. But Alvarez was really expected to be one of the major pieces after he started to go off in the first half, and then he took a little bit of a dip. He did take a little bit of a dip. But I think now that we have Lindor heating up, I think we have JD Martinez doing so well, being that leader in the clubhouse. I think we have Nimmo starting to do well. It takes a little bit of a load or a little bit of the pressure off Francisco Alvarez. And he's also got his buddies up here. He's got Vientos. He had Brett Beatty up last year, and that's when he was doing really well. You know, he's comfortable. You can tell he's comfortable with where he's at right now. And he's doing phenomenal. You got to give him credit. The 805 OPS is great. That's what you expect. And I think we're going to see an even more out of Francisco Alvarez. I think we're going to see even more because he's a dangerous hitter. He was the number one prospect in baseball for a reason, because he's dangerous. He is a dangerous hitter. So pitchers fear him. Pitchers do fear him. They got to be very careful with Francisco Alvarez 100%. And you got to give also some credit to Mark Vientos, baby. Vientos, baby, going off. I love to see it. Vientos has been fantastic this year. 289 batting average, 870 OPS, 7 home runs. I'm looking forward for him in this Subway Series because I think he's going to do really well. So, yeah, I'm looking forward for this Subway Series, specifically at that young guys. Like I said in the Subway Series preview, you know, Vientos and Alvarez, those are guys who I think are going to come up in situations with runners on against a guy like Garrett Cole. You know, I'm expecting Nimmo and and Lindor and Martinez to work the count, get on base. But it's guys like Alvarez and Vientos and even Alonso who I'm going to expect to drive them in. And especially, we got a deep lineup, and Alvarez and Vientos, they're the main parts of that deep lineup. They've been making this lineup considered deep. If they haven't been performing well, we wouldn't be like, this Mets lineup is deep. They're the reason this lineup is deep. So I'm looking at them in the Subway Series, and Vientos has been phenomenal. So let's bounce off the offense, though. I'm going to wrap it up with some pitchers because one of our pitchers got suspended for 10 games. I think he should appeal it. I think he will appeal it. I think it's BS, but that's also me being biased as a Mets fan. We don't know the full extent. Maybe he did have sticky stuff, but according to Diaz himself, he didn't. And I trust Diaz, man. I do trust Diaz. So we need him. I mean, since he's been back, he's actually been pitching pretty good. And, as I said in the last pod, before he went into those blown save situations, I think he was actually pitching better than he ever has with the Mets. So he looks like we need him. We need him. If he does get suspended, if this suspension actually gets held up, I'll be happy because I think it's BS. But if the suspension happens, I hope we can get by it because we need him. We do need him because our starting rotation really isn't that great outside of one guy who we're going to wrap the show up with, Luis Severino. Been phenomenal. 3.29 ERA, 5-2, 71 Ks through 15 games this season. So through half this season, he's been a beast. A beast. Better than what we expected? Yeah. Better than what everybody else expected? Yeah. And we got him on a 1-year deal. And pitchers have value as rentals. Hitters as rentals, they don't have that much value. I mean, we're seeing it with Alonso. We're seeing it with McNeil. McNeil isn't even a rental, but that's my bad. But we're seeing it with Alonso. Sometimes hitters don't have as much value as a rental because they might not re-sign. But pitchers, they're more valuable because good pitching is rare. It's rare. And you need good pitching to go on a playoff run, to do good in the playoffs. And Severino's a guy who's been pitching very well this year. He's a rental. They don't have to have him long-term. And he's done great this year. He's done great. You got to give him credit. Yesterday, he was lights out. 6 innings, 10 Ks, no runs allowed, only 3 hits. He's a reason we won that game. Severino's been great. And do we trade him or do we keep him? And honestly, with the slim pitching that the Mets do have this year, I'm leaning towards keep him, but I could see why we want to trade him because we will be getting Kodai Senga back. We do got Christian Scott, who had some good starts when he was up here, and he didn't get called down because he didn't get sent down because he sucked. He got sent down because there wasn't really a spot for him, and let's save him for later. Yes, I agree with that. But with Senga coming back sometime around that trade deadline, I think you could make the case for trading a guy like Sevy. I do. But it's a tough spot because, we got to make a case. It's on the Mets. You want to keep these guys. You want to keep this team together. We're right there. We are 1 game back of that 3rd NL wildcard spot. So you want to keep guys like Alonso. You want to keep guys like Severino. You want to keep guys like JD Martinez. Then there's one way to do it, and that's win. So if the Mets, if they want to buy instead of sell, then win. Because we are right there. And the Yankees are the only 500 team until July, I think 14th or 16th, I want to say. Yankees are the only team above 500 that we will see for a pretty good stretch. So we got to take advantage of this soft schedule. Luckily, the Yankees are 3-7 in their last 10 games. They're in a little bit of a skid. Like Billy said before, Louis Hill struggled in his last start, so you never know. Even though these pitchers are great that we're going up against, you never know. Got to take at least one of these 2 games and then take off again. Another win streak. I think the Mets, this is what they need. They need 2 more good win streaks in the next month, and they're in the mix as one of the top 3 teams in that NL wildcard spot. So we're a great team. The Mets are a great team. They got guys. They got a deep lineup, but they need pitching. So they're in a tough spot with Severino because you could get value back for him. You could. But with the slim pitching that we have, and if we do want to make a playoff push, because at the end of the day, you can say, oh, well, even if you make the playoffs, will the Mets actually even do anything in the playoffs? Well, you never really know. Like Alonso said at the beginning of the year, what's the goal? Get into the playoffs and then see what happens from there. And I think that's maybe what the Mets should do. I mean, we already got a pretty good farm system. I mean, you could trade guys like, I don't know, Sean Manaea, and we could still get some value. But like Severino's been so good to the point where, and we have a slim pitching rotation where you might just need to keep him. So in a tough spot, we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for the Subway Series. I'm going to be going live after the Subway Series is over after Game 2. Try to get some guests on too. Maybe I'll try to get Billy on again for the post Subway Series, and then we'll try to get another Mets guest to talk some Mets. We'll get a little panel going. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, whether you're on X, whether you're on YouTube. I appreciate you guys. Yuki, thank you, man. I appreciate you joining the show. The NR Hour Sports, thank you for joining in too. I appreciate you guys, and thank you, Billy, for talking some Yankees with me earlier today and that Subway Series preview. And if you liked my conversation with Billy, make sure you go check him out in the description on YouTube. Got the link to his X, got the link to his YouTube, got the link to his Instagram. Like I said before, he's got some great content. He's been with Baseball United. He's got his own podcast as well, and he has great guests. Former Washington Nationals manager recently on the pod just a few days ago. So make sure you go check that out. And if you're into reading and you're a young athlete, make sure you go check out his book, Passion Prevails. So yeah, thank you, Billy. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys, and let's go Mets.